If you're in corporate life, you might have heard this process called Four Disciplines of Execution. There's a book at the same title. It's a great process, great read if you're struggling to move the needle and trying to get some big result in the middle of the whirlwind, as it's called within that book. I was listening to an interview with my good friend Andy Storch and Chris McChesney on the Talent Development Hot Seat podcast, and he was talking about fatherhood and the four disciplines of execution and how they relate. And he shared this piece of wisdom that as I was driving my way through Chicago, I had to tell Siri to remind me of this quote because it was so good. And I knew the moment it hit me, I needed to bring it to you here on fatherhood. So the quote is, "No amount of success out of the home will compensate for a failure inside the home." I want to repeat that because it is a big, giant quote. Short, but big on impact. No amount of success out of the home will compensate for a failure inside the home. So let's spend a few minutes unpacking that. What does that actually mean? No amount of success out of the home will compensate for a failure inside the home. Well, let me take you to the genesis of this podcast. This genesis of the podcast is focused on men who build these big things, businesses, they climb ladders, they do big things in the world. But yet, at the end of their life, maybe 45 and 50 and 55, and they look back, maybe they've got divorced. Maybe their kids don't even know who they are. Maybe their kids have gotten done waiting for them to show up at a baseball game because dad was always at work or working on that next business deal to provide for the family. This podcast is to help any man who focuses on his career to the point where he feels like he's leaving his family behind. And no amount of success outside in business, no matter how much money you make, how many big deals you could close, a $5 billion deal. And at the end of the day, or at the end of your life, and you say, was that deal worth it? Or was a connection to my kids worth it? You're always going to say a connection to your kids. And so today is just a quick reminder that what you do on this earth is important, but what you leave behind is 10 times more important. And that's what Chris McChesney is saying here, is that no matter what you try to do, no matter what goals and ambitions you try to do outside the home, none of that will compensate for a failure inside the home. And so I want to remind you that being a connected dad at home will transcend you to being more connected in the places you go to succeed. And when we try to succeed outside the home without being connected at home, the consequences are devastating and they can never sometimes be recoverable, either through a loss in marriage, a lost connection with your kids, whatever it may be. There are lots and lots of doomsday scenarios connected to that. So today I just want to remind you that what you do inside the home matters. And whatever you do outside the home, it matters, but none of it is going to be worthy of the feeling of being successful inside the home. And I'll be back again with you on Monday.